morning and welcome to Vantage Point. I'm one of your two hosts, Marcia Boyles, and as always, I'd like to introduce my co-host and co-producer, Kathleen Taylor.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, Kathleen. Vantage Point is a discussion program in which we address issues of importance to residents. Today, our topic is going to be that of disabilities among our residents. And we're addressing this both from the standpoint of how the community perceives and deals with disabilities, and also how we as individuals deal with disabilities, both our own and those of other folks. We know the community is changing. We're aging in place, and we're also coming in with greater numbers of disabilities. So this is truly an issue that we do need to address here, and are addressing, I think. So in order to help us address the issues today, we have two guests that we're very pleased are going to be on the program. Jean Drakowski to my immediate right. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you.
John Lee to my further right.
Thank you.
A resident here also. John, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
At this point then, I will turn it over to Kathleen Taylor.
Yeah. So the topic of disability is certainly an important one, and when I started thinking about it myself, it really converged with for me with the other topic that has always been important right now, and that is who are we as a community? You know, what does it mean to be part of the Green Spring community? How do we engage with one another, support one another? And we sort of touched on that topic a couple times in Vantage Point already. So sort of putting the topic of disability into that, you know, I would just say, who are we as a community when members of our community are living with disability? How do we, again, engage and support? How are we good neighbors to our residents? All of our residents, and certainly those that have disability. So that's where I'm sort of coming from today. And I know that both John and Jean have some good insights into that topic. So to start, I'm looking at Jean. You had said something that I thought was really lovely when we were doing our pre-conversation the other day, and that you said that when you were out in the community, you were always seeing acts of kindness between our residents and others, and I thought that was insightful for sure. So tell me more about what you meant with that.
Even before we moved in, I asked one of my sons to come with me to look around the place where Al and I were going to move to. And we spent about 3 hours, and we walked around the hallways, and we walked over and had lunch at the cafe. And when we left, Chris said to me, you know, Mom, not one person has ignored us. They've smiled at us and welcomed us, not knowing that we're just visitors here. So presenting a good front before anybody moves in is an important thing. And since we've moved in, it's just been wonderful how people are just so kindly to you and welcome you and just say, hello, how are you? Sometimes I say, how many times can I lie? I say, I'm just fine. I don't say my knees hurt, my hips hurt or anything. But people are very open and friendly, and that makes life wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Jean, you might want to describe your situation in terms of how you present, because I think it's fairly unique here at Green Spring, and just it's nicely done.
You mean with Al's?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you know, Al, my husband, is totally blind, and when I bought him for his 90th birthday a rollator, and a neighbor made this wonderful sign that said blind driver, and that has caused so much joy to people. And I say, I'm the seeing eye dog, and so we treat it as something that helps us, and it has fun attached to it. And it's brought real happiness to people. Mm-hmm. They'll say, you don't look blind. And I say, how do you know?
I know. That's the first thing I remember about before I even knew you and Al, seeing you with the rollator and going, those people have a great sense of humor, a great outlook on life, and I'm sure it does draw people to you.
It really does, and a sense of humor is very important in life.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing that is so amazing about watching the two of you is that you navigate so well.
Oh, I'm a good driver, even out on the highway.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you look like you're perfectly comfortable.
I am. It's sort of
And Elle too.
exactly, and I think the hardest thing is that Al has had to give up so much more than I have with not being able to do things for himself. So his attitude is really good, and that's the same kind of attitude that I think you find in 90% of the people here at Green Spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that, I think we know sometimes that when people have a disability, if it's a more obvious one, sometimes it makes people a little bit uncertain of how to approach them. And so certainly the way that you do it is just go, hey, we're approachable, we're good with this.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And but I think, in general, sometimes it is hard for people to know. John, you had said you do a lot of volunteer work at Garden Ridge, and and you've noticed that, it is sometimes hard for residents to visit friends in Garden Ridge, and maybe we're wondering if there's a discomfort.
There may be, but there probably is. I don't do a lot of visiting over there, but we have a regular visit every Friday. We go over and people become very close friends with some people over there. Not only one person we make a point to visit, but I deliver and you deliver church bulletins, and that gives you a chance to meet people in their rooms. And some of them, frankly, are lonely. And so they really welcome someone to come in and talk to them. And I found the people that are just enjoyable to talk to. Some people say, I don't want to go over to Garden Ridge like this, if I never come back. but no, I think if you get used to going over there, and you should do that, everyone should do that. Of course, at some point, any one of us could be there.
Right.
And it sure would be nice to have visitors and have people to talk to you. I've lived with a person who has a disability, although she never goes around talking about it too much. But Marie, my wife, is totally deaf. Thank goodness for the miracle of cochlear implants. She can now hear. And she started losing her hearing at 29, and now it eventually went to 0. But the cochlear implants now enabled her to. So she goes about her life very conscious that so many people here have hearing problems. And thinking about, what can I do? I can't make everybody hear, but I can help people maybe to learn to live with their hearing problem and improve the situation for them, and work with Green Spring, work with the individual people. So she started the Hearing Loss Support Group, and has touched a lot of people. There are many, many more that she hasn't reached yet, and she knows that. But I have to say it took some adjustment for me. When Maria and I both been married before, so we're second time around, and she had a hearing problem then that continued to get worse. And I have to admit that I had to make some mental adjustments to live with a person that kept having to repeat something several times. And she was conscious of that too. But she's taught me to appreciate the fact that she didn't want to be that way.
True.
None of us
Exactly.
want to have a disability.
Right.
It's like being born, you don't choose your parents. You don't choose whether you're a boy or girl. You don't choose your color. All that just happens to you. And people, that's something you have to accept. That's the way it is. And then, so you can't accuse somebody of something that they had nothing to do with creating. So if they have a disability, you could say, that could be me.
Right.
And be that way. And so I find that whether people are in good shape, or have some disability, some not obvious, or some very obvious, that if you just treat everybody alike and are pleasant to people, it'll brighten up their day and they'll be pleasant back to you.
Right.
It's like if you're grouchy, they're going to be grouchy.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if you're smiling, you stop and joke with people and this sort of thing, they brighten up and they go on their way.
Right.
And it makes them feel good, makes me feel good.
Yeah, I mean, those are some really empowering words, because I think sometimes when people do have a disability, especially if it's not something that they're born with, but it happens, you know, because of a disease process or something like that, they can get really self-conscious and maybe kind of keep to themselves and stay in their apartment and not want to go out because I mean, we all have a piece of us that feels like we're going to get judged or you know, somebody's going to decide that we're not as good as somebody else. I think that's the seed that's planted in young childhood and we never quite get rid of. But the idea of just, you know, reaching out to the world and continuing to live, you know, you guys have both got messages really strong about the value of doing that.
I think the only thing we'll be judged on is our own behavior and not somebody else's behavior, our behavior. So the question always to me is, okay, so somebody is doing something you judge to be not make you happy, misbehaving. The question is not how they're behaving. What do you do?
How do you react?
How do you react? What's your own behavior?
Yeah.
My mother taught me that.
Wow.
Good mom.
Wise lady.
I had a great mom. I sure did.
Absolutely.
I didn't choose her, but she was good.
She ended
was
up
very
being good.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, I know that you know, Maria's doing a lot in terms of giving people knowledge too. That's really, you know, helping them to be able to get past, you know, get the tools that they need to be able to get past their disability. And I think that that's something that is also really great to see in our community, as people helping each other and other people that are in similar situations being able to share their experiences. Really always you know, I think a really good step to the support groups that we have. She does one. We have a low vision support group as well. So I think sometimes feeling like you're not the only one really makes a difference too.
It does. It sure does.
I like the notion of the fact that disabilities are usually not voluntary.
Right. Say most of the time.
We didn't volunteer. Well, most of the time. I mean, I think, I mean, really all the time. We didn't volunteer to have disabilities.
Yeah.
I'm in sort of an unusual situation in appearing both disabled and non-disabled, and let me talk just a little bit to that point. I use a chair up and down the hallways. I can walk just fine, but for relatively short distances. So I am sometimes in a chair and sometimes not in a chair.
By chair, you mean an EMV? Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, an electric chair. Thanks, John.
Not an electric chair.
That's what we call them. We who use
Electric
them.
scooter.
Yeah. No, they're not it's not the same as a scooter.
Okay.
The electric chairs, okay, doesn't matter. We won't get into the difference between those two.
Variations on the same theme.
The same thing, exactly. Anyway, to make the point that I'm making is that I do see a difference in the reaction of people, whether I'm in the chair or not, and let me elaborate on that. I think for those people who are friends who know me and I know them, doesn't make a whit's worth of difference that I'm in a chair, and the greeting is always just exactly the same. For folks who don't know me and I don't know, I'm finding sometimes at least an unwillingness to make eye contact, to acknowledge me when I'm in a chair and they don't know me. And I think I can extrapolate from that just a little bit, that I think we're much more comfortable and tolerant when our friends become disabled. People that we've known for, often years. We deal with their disabilities and them sympathetically and with concern, and I think sometimes we're less comfortable with people we don't know who have disabilities. Have you seen any of that?
I haven't seen anything personally and towards Al either. And the one thing that is so good here at Green Spring is that there are so many activities that you can get involved in. And you can go to a class that is going to help you deal with whatever you're coping with. And one of the lovely things is seeing people saying, I go to this, let me help you come and be part of and get understanding of what your disability is holding you back from.
Yeah.
So it's encouraging each other, and I see that a lot. And I I personally think go and get involved so that I can feel at home. And the people that I meet in the hallways are just wonderfully accepting.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about sort of solves the problem that Marcia was saying, which is if you're not known as a person, then it's kind of human nature to sort of stereotype people a little bit, put them in a category and, think that they're a certain way. But if you are known as a person and, you are going to a group and, people are starting to know that you have like this wicked sense of humor or, what you're interested in, then people don't see a disability. They don't see difference anymore. They see sameness. And I think that that's sort of what our connection is as human beings is, we're always looking a little bit more for what we have in common. And sometimes a disability makes people feel like we're very different from one another when we really aren't. But you have to sort of get past that initial hurdle.
Well, I think Marcia brings up an interesting point. I don't think it's meanness on people's part. I think sometimes people are uncomfortable. It's like going to visit a very sick friend.
Right.
Sometimes I don't know what to say, and you think that way. Well, what to say is just to talk to them like normal, I guess.
Right.
But and
No, John, I think you've hit the nail right on the head. It's discomfort.
discomfort.
It isn't really. I don't feel judged. I'm picking up discomfort.
That's true.
Well, I think you feel judged, but what you're actually picking up is discomfort. I think that we interpret it in a different way.
They're seeing the disability rather than the person, and we all have a tendency to do that to some extent. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of human nature, but no, I don't. I really don't feel judged as a person. I really don't. I think you're not comfortable with me being in a chair.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's what so brilliant about your blind driver sign is it really disarms that.
That's just what I
It would
was
be a
thinking.
wonderful thing if we could find a little label to put in front of us. I have this. I'm living with it. Thank you for loving
I
it.
would all have something on
I
our
was
sign,
thinking the
wouldn't
same
we?
thing,
Right
Jean.
across our sweatshirts.
If we could have little signs for I could have a sign saying, I walk perfectly fine, but these halls are too long, or something.
Well, I walk around sometimes with a t-shirt, a sweatshirt on that says Bethany Beach, and almost 99% of the people say, oh, Bethany Beach, I have such memories of that. So it's something helping other people to come into our lives and being part of their lives. So everybody get their favorite sweatshirt and put the right words on them.
I know what I'll put on mine.
What?
I speak Southern. Thank you for loving me anyway. That's right, yeah.
Very good.
Well, a lot of people will say to me, oh, I remember when I was in England. So
Oh yeah,
I'm very blessed.
Yeah, you are lucky. That just draws everybody right in.
And kindness. Kindness.
There's a short poem that sort of sums this up. I forget the author right now. But he drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in.
Oh.
See, and so it gets back to how we behave.
I think you better print that up.
That's a nice
Oh,
one.
That is a very nice one,
well-known
John.
poem.
Very nice indeed.
So it gets down to, this thing about discomfort. I think that it's like anything we see that makes us uncomfortable. We can be going down the street and someone disabled begging on the street, looking like they're hungry and they're holding a cup out. We tend to sort of turn away from that because why? It makes us uncomfortable. Sometimes because we feel guilty.
Right.
Sometimes because we just dread that it's that way and we don't want to make eye contact. But I had a good friend who left where I worked in the federal government, went to California, and he came back for a visit once. But he did this while he was working here. He'd take his sandwich and his lunch every day and go out to the mall, where there were a lot of homeless people at that time, and sit on the bench, one of these homeless people, open his sandwich, give the other person a half sandwich,
Right.
and come back and say, I just had the most fascinating discussion
Oh, man.
and
Right.
with this person, because, you know, they're human beings.
Right.
They're human beings. We're all human beings.
I think I had the same kind of a friend. He used to carry McDonald's gift certificates and just give them. He said, if I had the time, I went with him or them to have lunch with them. So it is putting out that hand to make sure that somebody can get a meal, and it's the love goes along, and if you can go the extra mile, go and eat with them. So good
Yeah.
points,
Yeah.
Don. Good
Yes,
points.
it is.
Yeah.
I think it's part of all kinds of different biases, of whether it's racial or gender or disability or whatever. It's otherness.
Yeah.
That there is
Yeah.
A lack of comfort
a lack
that
of
we have
comfort.
to sort of get past.
Exactly.
I just think we have to thank everybody who lives at Green Spring. They're very kind, really.
Well, again, I think your presentation cuts through what we are acknowledging can exist of the discomfort.
Yeah.
It just does.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good message to people that are having trouble for whatever reason, kind of, you know, coming out of their shell. That it's safe to do that out here. It's safe to do that here, you know.
Yes, you never know if people are being rejected.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Kathleen,
Right.
tell your story about the grocery store.
Oh. Well, Marcia and I have been talking about this, but I was at the grocery store one time, and a gentleman in a motorized vehicle asked me if I could get something from the top shelf, so I got him his potato chips and I handed them to him, and I was going to go about my way, and he was like, well, wait a minute, I have one more thing to ask you, please, you know, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, oh, no.
I've got to get home.
Go on forever.
What does he want now? And he was like, I just wanted to say, have a great day. And then he just sort of laughed at me, you know, because he knew what he was doing. He was
Yeah.
intentionally kind of sort of setting me up for the punchline.
Wow.
But that was the same thing, that he was
Yeah.
very comfortable with his disability, and he knew that
Yeah.
it was a barrier, and so he was using humor to reach out.
And he was relieving you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he was very aware of the fact that, you know, people do kind of, you know, maybe respond, don't know how to respond. I think that's sort of the underlying thing, is we had talked about, don't know how to respond in situations like that. So I think it's just an important message that people know that it's that just getting to know another person can be such a great experience, not only for that other person, but for you.
Yeah.
You're going to walk away with a good story, maybe.
Well, a lot of people will ask when you're at the dinner table, how long have you lived here? And Al and I have been here 10.5 years. And people say, 10.5 years?
Yeah.
I think you believe it. And I said, I really think we're alive longer because we're
Yes.
here with the benefit of people's kindness around and acceptability all the time. So
Right.
I'm going for the next 5.5 years.
Wow.
I think this is also bringing up the issue of accepting one's own disability. And
That's
the
right.
kinds of, your situation, the little story that you've told about the chap with cerebral palsy, I think speaks to that too, that it's hard to make other people comfortable with your disability if you're not comfortable with your disability.
Yeah.
And
But sort of
for
the-
sure it takes a while for that to happen.
Right, but sort of flipping that, if you are able to do that, then it doesn't become a barrier anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
If you understand that it's really, you know, not about you, like you said, not about you being judged, it's just about people being uncomfortable. How do you put people at ease?
Right,
You know,
right.
at any time, it's sort of the same thing.
Right. Well, Al cannot see, but he can think.
Yeah.
And he can
Yes,
Can he
speak.
think?
yes, yes,
Very well.
at all,
Very
yeah.
good thinker.
And I do say that quite often. If somebody says, how is Al? And I turn and say, Al, how are you?
Yeah.
Okay, good
Yeah.
point.
Well, yeah. I mean, that happens, right?
It does
Yeah.
everywhere, and I do it myself. That you look at the disability sometimes and you cut people down.
Yeah, you kind
because
of
it.
assume that they're like
Unable.
totally unable.
Right.
Yeah.
I find it when I'm in a chair, sometimes people will speak to me very loudly.
Huh.
There are some assumptions being made, I think.
Right.
I was thinking about that actually when I was walking down the hall from Walden Court coming over here. I have this habit of saying, how are you? How are you? My wife likes me for that. I said, okay, that forces them to answer the question. How? So I now just say, good morning, and we do that with a smile, and then they don't have to think too much to answer. They say good morning back. I'm not challenging people who are barely awake.
And you meet so many people on
Yeah.
each walk.
You really do. You really do.
But people do all speak.
Yes.
They do
Yes,
speak.
very much so.
Right.
And
Al and I try to come up with a new
Different
sign
ones.
each week. Okay, this week it's as well as I can be.
as well as I can be. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely hilarious because when you go outside of Green Spring, like I get immersed in the Green Spring ways, so I'm saying hello to everybody and making eye contact. Go to my local Giant. I apparently spend a lot of time there because I've always got Giant stories. but you know, making eye contact and saying hello to people is a mixed bag out in the real world.
You be careful.
Well, no, I mean, it's just that they're like, why is this
They're
woman
startled.
talking to me?
Who, do I
yeah,
know
what does
her?
she want? Or
Yeah,
or
exactly.
do I know her, you know? Just the idea of being kind of, you know, neighborly.
You're a little strange because
is-
you're friendly.
In Northern Virginia, it's sort of not cut out that way at some
No,
level,
that's
you
right.
know? So you seem strange, yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
this is a great little bubble we're in at some level.
nice bubble. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be in it.
Not only the residents, the staff here are very friendly.
Absolutely.
And it makes no difference what the staff are doing, what level of staff, what they're doing. Walk down the hall, you meet them, they're always friendly and speak back.
Yes,
They're
they are.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it adds to the
Very.
feeling that you're welcome to be
It's a
here.
comfortable
Yeah.
place.
It's a comfortable place.
It is.
Yeah.
Great.
It's actually really like you can come in here. For me, I can walk in and be in a bad mood, and you know, after the first couple of
You're not
hellos,
allowed.
walking down the hallway, you know, my mood is lifted.
Yeah.
And you
You
don't
know?
get that at Giant.
You don't get that at the Giant. You can be as grumpy as you want at the Giant.
I'm not going to your Giant.
But you could get some, are we out of time?
I think we are. Yes.
I'll tell my
No, no.
story later.
Yeah, I
no.
think you have time for that.
Well, you can get philosophy at the grocery store.
Yes, you
though.
can.
There's the tale about the lady who was in line and came to the cashier and she said, my first time here, never lived in this part of the country before. How are the people here? And I said, well, how were they where you left? Oh, so they were mean, grouchy, people picking on each other. You couldn't trust anybody. He said, well, you'll find them the same way here. And later on, another lady came through, and she's had the same situation. How are the people here? He said, well, how were the people where you left? Oh, it's the nicest people. Everybody was so kind and so nice.
Get the
And
point.
it just, they just go out of their way to help you. And he said, you'll find them the same way here.
Isn't
All
that
right.
the truth? Perfect.
Good point.
That's
Good
a
story.
great way
Very
to
good.
end. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Good.
Well, thanks so much for coming today.
Welcome. Thank
yeah,
you.
good,
Thank
good
you.
talk, and
And I'll try to do eye contact with you.
Oh, gee, thanks so much.
She's in her chair, right?
I love it.
Okay, well, it's time to do our